Hi, this is Cece with Going Solo, and you are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. And I am so excited to have with me tonight Stephanie Greenberg. Stephanie Greenberg, gosh, she does a lot of things. She's a lady that wears many hats because she is an attorney. She also does the child representative guardian ad litem. She does divorce family mediation. She's a mediator. So you wear many, many hats. So welcome, Stephanie, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it is so great having you. Now, your law firm is called Greenberg and Sinkovich, right? Am I saying it correctly?
Greenberg and Sinkovich, yes.
Wonderful. Okay. And you're located where?
We are in Chicago, Illinois. We're at 77 West Washington Street, which is actually right across the street from the courthouse in Chicago.
Oh, that's very convenient. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, how did you get in? Why did you want to be an attorney? And then especially, specializing in what you're doing? Because it sounds like to me that you really put a lot of thought into helping families. So you've specialized in children, the guardian ad litem, with the mediation, also trying to bring families together. Even though you're going through divorce, mediation does help that along to be able to create a more, I think, a little bit easier environment versus, the stronghold of what you have to do and when you're arguing and fighting and the litigation part that you do in divorce. But so tell us, how did you get into doing what you're doing, and what drives you for that?
Sure. So out of undergrad, I worked for a large law firm where I worked on a Hurricane Katrina project. So we were pro bono attorneys helping individuals relocate their homes. And that's kind of what inspired me to actually become an attorney and go to law school. Is because I wanted to help individuals. I also did some work with business litigation and decided, this is not for me. I really like working with individuals and helping real people solve real life problems every day. And so I started working at a family law firm in law school, got great experience, and just decided, this is what I want to do. And then once I became an attorney and started in family law, I realized that becoming a child representative and a guardian ad litem was really something I wanted to practice and go down that road, because you're helping the most vulnerable, you're helping the children. So that's kind of what inspired me to go along this path.
Yes. I really was very inspired to talk to you, because we have not had a guardian ad litem on the station before, and I would like to be able to help the audience understand what your role is. So could you explain to us and you're actually a child representative guardian ad litem. So explain to us what exactly that is, and why would we have a need for something like that?
Sure. So there's actually 3 types of attorneys that are appointed for the children. There's something called an attorney for the child. That's in Illinois, we don't use that very often. So most of my work is either as a child representative or a guardian ad litem. These are attorneys that are appointed by the court. So usually the judge will appoint you, or maybe counsel from one of the parties will recommend you, and then the court will appoint you. And your role is really to serve the best interests of the children. So just finding out, which parent would be the better fit for them, who should have the majority of parenting time, who should be the residential parent, who should be making decisions. So your role is as an attorney, but it's for the children, and it's strictly to represent their best interests.
Now, what kind of scenario would cause a judge to appoint? Because that's not your norm, is it? So why would a judge come in and appoint someone like yourself to represent the children?
So in most instances, we are appointed on cases where the parties obviously have minor children and just can't come to any sort of agreement. So they're not agreeing about who should make decisions for the children. They're not agreeing about, who should have what parenting time or who the children should live with. If it's something that they are continuously arguing about and they maybe couldn't solve in mediation or something similar, then the court will appoint us, we'll step in, and we'll help the court make that decision for them.
Oh, okay. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the child might be in any kind of duress or anything like that. Okay.
No, it doesn't. I mean, sometimes that's the situation, but most of the time it does not mean that necessarily.
Okay. Now, do you find in your practice that because of the strain on the family, where the parents can't come to some sort of decision, how are the kids handling that? Is it very stressful for them?
You know what? A lot of times it is. It depends on the situation. Some parents are really good about putting their children in therapy, which I highly recommend to pretty much anyone going through the situation of divorce, or maybe in the instance of a parentage case where the parties were never married. Therapy is so beneficial to the children to help them work through the process. But yes, I mean, children are smarter than I think a lot of us give them credit for, and so they pick up on a lot of cues and a lot of discontent between the parents, and it can be very stressful for them.
Right, absolutely. Well, like anything, when you're going through divorce, it becomes very, very difficult. And, we as adults, we're finding it hard, to be able to come to terms with a lot of the situations and a lot of changes that we're going through. So we know that children have to be also experiencing that. Definitely.
Yes.
And then the uncertainty of which parent to go with, and if the parents are arguing. Yeah. So tell us, how can we help you do your job better? How can we be a better parent to be able to help these children be able to make this type of adjustment?
So I think one of the main things is to really keep the children's interest at the forefront. I think it's hard, when individuals are going through a divorce, to really put the children first. There's a lot of emotions involved, which as a divorce attorney, separate from being a child representative, I understand and I see all the time how hard this is for people, and it's understandable. But I think for a lot of people, it's really difficult to think about, what's in the best interest of my children. I might be really mad at my spouse or my soon-to-be ex-spouse, but the way I'm acting is not at all beneficial for my children. So just to keep those children at the forefront of your mind, probably put them into some type of therapy if necessary. It's never harmful to do that. And to just have a good support system to, help your children understand the process, and never talk ill about the other spouse to the children either is a big thing that I see that's never beneficial to anybody.
Right. Now, do you think that you handle a lot of parent alienation cases?
I've handled some where there is true parental alienation going on. However, a lot of times one parent uses that term and thinks there's parental alienation going on when that's not really the case. So I wouldn't say it happens a ton where it's true parental alienation, but it does sometimes. And those cases can really be, they can really drag on for a long time and be some of the more highly litigated and emotional cases.
Right. So that the audience better understands, what is parent alienation? What is that exactly?
So in a nutshell, parental alienation is when one parent is really, for lack of a better term, alienating the child from the other parent through numerous actions. It can be that they repeatedly talk negatively about the other parent to the child. It could be actions, either keeping the child and not giving them back to that parent on a, consistent basis. I've had situations where there's some bribery going on, so they give the child a lot of toys when they're with them and there's no punishment at all. When they know the other parent is more of the disciplinarian, and it's all meant so that the child wants to be with them, thinks the other parent's the bad guy. So it can be a number of things, but it's really just trying to turn the child against the other parent in some way.
Okay. And now going down the road, have you seen the reaction from the children, or what they've experienced when they had this type of behavior?
When there's parental alienation, I have, and it can have some really terrible effects. I've had cases where children have, threatened to blow up a school, said really horrible things about the other parent because of things that have directly come from that, the parent doing the alienation, directly coming from their mouths, and the child soaks it in and acts out, and is very angry. So, usually there's a lot of anger there towards the parent that's being alienated, if that's what's happening.
Right. And that makes it so difficult, when you're going through the divorce, because it just creates a whole nother factor of, difficulty. I mean, so if you're not, it's hard enough just to go through the divorce, just to create the separation that you're starting to do, then have, this kind of reaction from your kids. And your kids are going to react. I mean, there are, depending on different stages of their ages and how they're able to accept things, there are going to be some little acting out, some various different things that they are going to experience that we have to, as parents, help them get through. But you're talking major,
Right.
major problems, which is going to long-term have a huge effect on these children. So this is certainly not something we want to see, and we want to try to help the listeners out there understand that, even though you're hurt and the bitterness that you feel inside, you can't let your feelings, come out with your children, using them, as a, kind of like a, I don't know what you would, it's just like a ball, tossing it around back and forth, and it's just not a good thing. So now let's talk a little bit about your practice itself there in Chicago. You do handle regular divorces, and you do mediation. So what are you saying? What are you thinking as today's divorce? Because I'm seeing more of myself that people are turning towards being more, I wouldn't say, they're not like arguing so much. They're able to actually sit down and talk to each other a little bit more, come out with a parenting plan, different things like that. So are you finding that in today's world that we're actually starting to embrace mediation?
I do think that in recent years, especially the past 4 or 5 years, there's definitely a movement towards mediation or collaborative divorce, which is somewhat similar, but there's actual attorneys involved instead of a mediator. But I do find that people, I think it's, they know a lot more about mediation. It's more publicized. And for people that can get along well enough to just sit in a room together and try to work through some of these issues, it's highly beneficial. Because these people are really coming up with their own plan, not something that a judge, a third party that knows nothing about their family is ordering for them. They're able to kind of drive their future, and I think that's really attractive to people.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if people would understand, individuals out there that are going through the divorce, to understand the process of divorce. And I've always said that, listen, if you're down that road, you're going to get divorced. You're already moving towards that. It's going to happen. So why not try to, at least put yourself in the driving seat and not allow someone else, a complete stranger, to make a decision of, how your family's going to take their vacation time and, various different things like that. How are you going to, do the kids back and forth and divide up, the odds and ends that you have, the material things. And it's silly to fight over something that, is not so that you can replace, it's silly to do that and cause, it's not just the money of it, but it's the anguish that the whole family goes through. So I like the idea of mediation. I'm really pleased that we're turning towards that, and we're educating the families out there so they understand that there's alternatives for them.
Right, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. So tell us a little bit about how we can get a hold of you if we're in the Chicago area. Now, do you handle any cases outside of Illinois?
Illinois is the only state we handle cases in, but we do handle both Cook counties, which there are a number of outlying courthouses in Cook County, and then we handle some collar counties around Chicago as well.
Okay. And so give us your contact information.
Sure. So our phone number is 312-905-3013. And our website is www.gsillinoislaw.com. mediator.com, and our website has a lot of additional information on it as well.
That's great. That's great. Well, I'll tell you what, Stephanie, it's going by pretty quickly. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, let's give our listeners a few tips as they're traveling through divorce and what some things that they can possibly do to make the road a little bit easier. If they feel that they need to get a guardian ad litem involved, how do they go about doing it? Things like that would kind of help them, make the path a little bit easier on divorce. So we'll talk about that when we come back. So I do have Stephanie Greenberg with me, and she is from Chicago, Illinois. She is an attorney there. She handles, she's a managing partner, plus she's a child representative, guardian ad litem. She does divorce family mediator, and she's also, just an attorney doing litigation too. So she wears many hats, this fine lady, and so we appreciate that. So I want to thank you guys for joining WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and of course my show Going Solo with Cece. We have so many different types of people on, interviewing them, talking about various different subjects, all the way from divorce, transition into dating itself, inspiration. We do business. We have authors. So I just want you to know that we are here for you, trying to help you adjust to being single, because we know how difficult it can be. But if we can get to the point where we just love our life the way it is, we will have our vibration so high that someone will come into our lives, and we can embrace that and move forward into however relationship that we want. So we are so looking forward to all that happening to you. And so we're here for you 24/7. We have talk shows all night long. So if you can't sleep, you can just tune in, listen to shows that will inspire you, help you to be able to move forward in a very positive way. And that's what it's all about. So we want you to love your life and live it the best you can. So I want to thank you for listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network and my show, Going Solo with Cece. So we're going to come right back now, because we do have Stephanie Greenberg waiting for us. And again, she is a managing partner right there in Chicago, Illinois. She is a child representative guardian ad litem. Also, she does divorce family mediator. She does mediation there, which is the new way, I think, that we are going into divorce, collaborative divorce, things like that. We need to look at different ways of being able to embrace our situations that we're going through and trying to make it easier for not only ourselves, but our families. And I think that's what it's all about. So thank you for waiting for us. So welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
That's wonderful. Well, the first part of the show, I think you gave us a lot of information, because you shared with us not only your journey of how you started to become an attorney yourself, and how you wanted to, reach out to families and help them being able to move through this very difficult time in their lives, but also how you've embraced the fact of helping families with children, being the children representative, and helping the kids being able to better understand what's going on with them, and also help the families understand what's better for their children. Because sometimes I think when we're in the muckety muck of things, we don't see, we just feel the pain, and we don't necessarily see what's really better for ourselves and what's better for our families. And so I think someone like you, coming forward with really having the knowledge and the experience to help guide our families through this most difficult time, I think it's really awesome. So thank you so much for doing that.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about divorce itself. And can you give us any kind of tips to be able to help move through that process of divorce without getting stuck in the emotional part of it? Because we have both the economical part of it, the legal realm of it, and then we have the emotional. And sometimes the emotional overtakes, and then we get stuck into the divorce process. So tell us a little bit about how we can move forward in a little bit smoother fashion.
Right. So I think the main thing to keep in mind when you're going through a divorce is that this process is happening, but at the end of the day, you want to come out of it and be able to move forward with your life. In order to best do that, it's good to have a realistic perspective while you're going through divorce about what you really want, what you really need, and just kind of moving forward, as opposed to looking at the past, being angry at your partner, because that in the long run really doesn't help you or your family. So I think some tips to do that are, number one, it's always good to have a therapist, both individuals. When I represent them as a divorce attorney, I give them referrals to a therapist. It's not a bad idea, and it's somebody that can really help you work through the process. Same thing with your children. Putting them in therapy, especially if it's really necessary, is always a positive thing. Another thing is just to kind of keep everything in order. So when you're going through a divorce, a lot of it is obviously financial related. So kind of gathering all of that documentation, having a clear picture of what your financials look like and what you want coming out of the divorce is really helpful to an attorney. And I think it's helpful to the individuals as well, just to see, okay, well, here's what was going on when we were a family. Here's what my life is going to look like now as a single individual moving forward. And then just discussing all of that with your attorney and telling them exactly what you want and having them assist you, to come to the best possible outcome for you so that you can really just move forward and live your best life after your divorce.
Yeah, great advice. Absolutely great advice. And, I like what you said with regards to keeping things in order because, and again, therapists, I highly recommend myself that people go to a therapist, maybe join a divorce group, get some sort of support with other like-minded people that will help you be able to adjust. I think it's definitely the way to go. Then you don't feel quite so alone, when you're doing that, when you have a thinking partner with you as your therapist or your coach or whoever helps you with that. But I like the idea of what you said about keeping order, because I know that when I was going through my divorce, it was so crazy because I was going through some medical issues at the same time. I was trying to adjust to, working, new environment, all that kind of, there was just so many realms of change going on within my life. And I know others out there that are listening, it's definitely happening to them. So that order, what you're talking about, helps center us and helps keep us balanced. So if we can, even though things are swirling all around us, if we start focusing on what we need to do, like gather the paperwork together, talk to the attorney, get a list of things that we need to do, focus on things that we can make a change, that we can make a progress with, that really does keep us balanced, doesn't it?
Right, exactly. And just kind of having a checklist with which an attorney can help you with, something you can do every day or every week to help move the process forward and keep that order is really helpful so you don't get caught up in the day-to-day emotions and everything, that's going on with your divorce. So I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I like, too, what you said about, talking with your attorney, because I think that as you progress, isn't it true that you go to different stages in your divorce? So there's different things that you're going to need to take care of. And so with talking through your attorney, you can find out what you need to do in order to get to the next step. Say, okay, I did this, now what do I need to do now? And I tell you what, your divorce will go so much smoother if you're working together as a partnership with your attorney versus just expecting your attorney to take care of everything. If you really do play a role in your divorce, I think it makes it a lot easier for the attorney. Don't you think?
I definitely agree. There's a lot of times when I will, have a client email me a question and I'll reach out to them and then I get no response. And that's never helpful for us or for you if you're going through a divorce. Staying involved and asking questions and telling your attorney what you want and seeking advice on those things is beneficial to both of you. Just responsiveness both ways, I think, is extremely important.
Yeah, and we have email now, so that makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
A lot easier, yes.
Yeah, so you can, like, at nighttime, you can sit down and write out, your list of questions or whatever, and then the attorney can come back to you at a time that's good for them to be able to answer it, and it makes it go a whole lot easier. And one thing I wanted to mention, too, and I wonder if you feel the same way, is pick your battles. I've noticed as we go through divorce, we can argue about everything. Every single thing there is, we can just make it miserable. But it's better to just pick your battles. Pick what is truly important to you. So if you have something like, for instance, I know for me, Memorial Weekend is a very difficult time for me. So I wanted my son Memorial Weekend. So, you pick those battles of what is really, really important to you. So it makes it go a whole lot easier when you're giving and taking. So you're saying, okay, this is important to me. So you can, I'll give you this. And so it's really that not having that tug of war, right?
Right, exactly. And along those lines, it's important to be reasonable. Nobody's ever going to be able to probably get you every single thing that you want, especially if you're not being reasonable. So just like you mentioned, if there's a holiday that's really important to you and your family, seek that. But maybe another holiday is important to your soon-to-be ex-spouse. Be reasonable and let them have that holiday if it doesn't mean as much to you. And that will really help the process go along more smoothly, and it will help you and your spouse work together in a much more effective manner.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let me ask you about coming back. Let's say we've already did the divorce. Now, do you help the couples be able to wrap up some loose ends that might need to take place, do you find that they have to come back to you to finish out some of the other things that need to be done? Because sometimes we put things in place that need to be done, and then judge orders it, and then it's like, okay, well, that's good. Right. It doesn't get done, so it's like, okay, now what do we do? We're divorced and we don't have all this other stuff completed. Do you help them making sure all of the loose ends get tied up?
We do, and a lot of the issues that people need to go back to court for are things like splitting of retirement. That's not always done at the time of the divorce, so we help with that. And college expenses is a huge issue. So maybe your child was 5 years old at the time of your divorce, so you didn't really provide for who was paying what in terms of college expenses. You go back to court when they're 17 years old or 18 and about to head off to college, and that's an issue you would deal with then, and we do help people deal with those issues.
Okay. Well, I think that's good to know. So it's nice to know that you're there from the very beginning through the muckety-muck of it all, and then also there at the end. So if you have another issue or if you have something that you need to resolve, that you can come back and get it resolved in an easy fashion. So I think that's very important for listeners out there to know that they're there not just at the beginning of the divorce, but all the way through the whole process.
Right, exactly.
That's wonderful. Well, I tell you what, the time went by very quickly, and it's a delight to have you on the show. So, Stephanie, tell us one more time how we can get a hold of you.
Sure. So you can contact us by phone at 312-905-3013, or you can visit our website, which is www.gsillinoislaw.com.
That's wonderful. Now, do you have any closing words that you would like to say? Any advice you'd like to give them as a close to the show?
Yeah, I just think for anybody that is going through a divorce, just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I help people through this process every day. And I think being able to keep things in perspective, in order, maybe having a therapist or a support system you can talk to is so important. And at the end of the day, you're going to be okay, your family is going to be okay, and you'll be able to progress and move forward with your life.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much. You've given us so much information, and it's a comfort to know, you and other attorneys out there are really trying to make the process easier for everyone involved. And I really think that that's a great thing, because it's a very difficult time for everyone. So it's nice to know that we have some really great attorneys out there that do help. They're not all about litigation. They are trying about blending the families, trying to keep them together, trying to, make it work through the process of divorce. And I really commend you for that. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
It's great having you. Well, we are listening to Stephanie Greenberg. She is a managing partner right there in Chicago, Illinois. She's a child representative guardian ad litem. She does divorce family mediation and also the litigation of divorce. So we thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Well, this is Cece with Going Solo, and you are listening to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. We are your singles internet talk station, and so we're so glad to be here. So catch us back right here, same place. Bye for now.